माम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ यत्तदद्रेश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अगोत्रम् अवर्णम् अचक्षुश्रोत्रम् तदपाणिपादम् नित्यम् विभुम् सर्वगतम् सुसूक्ष्मम् तदव्ययम् यद्भूतयोनिम् परिपश्यन्ति धीराः So this was the verse we were looking at, and so here Brahman is actually talked about with different words which reveal the nature of Brahman to us. Okay, because one important thing we have to understand is Brahman cannot be denoted by the meaning of any one word. If Brahman is the meaning of any one word only, then it will not be unlimited or Anantam. It cannot be Anantam. But still Brahman has to be communicated only through words, correct? So words are the means of knowledge for us. That's why here the Shruti uses the interesting methodology to reveal Brahman. So Brahman is negated, okay, as not this, because generally there is a misconception about what it is. So, but only by negating you can't reveal something. But negation is very important, because negation is important for removing all wrong notions about Brahman. Okay. So that's why here you see initially Brahman is said that it is adreshyam. It is not something, it is not an object of your sense organs. It's not an object of your organs of action also. It doesn't have any agotram, it doesn't have any cause. Okay. It itself is causeless. It is avarnam. It cannot be categorized as this or that. It is not something which can be categorized into any particular species or category, or it doesn't have any qualities also. That avarnam here, varna can also mean qualities. So that which does not have any qualities, and it itself is not a means of, it itself is not a sense organ, achakshushrotram, and apanipadam also. It is not any organs of action itself. So when you look at all these things, itself it is very clear what is being pointed out, because if you apply all these negations, what is left out is only you, correct? Everything else is denied here by saying that it is not a organ of your sense organs, it's not an object of your sense organs or your organs of action. Effectively, the entire world is denied. The objective world which we are able to cognize is not Brahman. So Brahman is not an object. That is what is being denied here by giving all these negations. It is the subject. In fact, it is not also the subject. That's what we will understand. But at least what is being denied very clearly is Brahman cannot be something which can be objectified. That is very clearly revealed here. And again, then what is Brahman? It is eternal. So again, the beauty here is first all the whatever negations which are done actually is pointing Brahman as yourself, but you have wrong notions about yourself also. About oneself, everybody has wrong notions. One of the first things about us, we have the wrong notion is what? That I am a mortal. But here what is being said? Nityam. Brahman is Nityam. And not only that, Vibhum. It is the one which has become everything also. And because of that, it pervades everything also. Sarvagatam. But it is Susukshmam. It is highly subtle. That's because it is the basis for both the subject and the object. And to understand this, it is not easy. Because we are used to knowing things as only objects. They are either objects of your sense organs or objects of your mind. At least we have to objectify in mind to know something. But here we have to know something which is yourself. Okay, that means there is no way of objectifying it. But still, in fact, it is the only thing which you can still know completely, because it is the only thing which is partless. That's why avyayam. Avyayam means navyeti iti avyayam. That which does not decline or change or diminish. Why? Because it does not have any parts. It is because anything which has parts and which is put together will fall apart. Correct? Anything which has parts will fall apart. But Brahman is avyayam. It is avyayam because it is niravayavam also. Avayavam means parts. Niravayavam means that which is partless. And it is also, okay, because of all these things, is it something jadam? Means no. It is the bhuta yoni. It is the cause of all the beings. It is an intelligent cause. So Brahman is both the intelligent and material cause. So the Vibhum word means that Brahman is upadana karanam, and bhuta yonim points out that Brahman is actually the nimitta karanam. So Brahman is the abhinna nimitta upadana karanam, and in this context we discussed the different arguments, correct? What different people propose and what actually we in our teaching tradition, what do we establish? So to summarize that, there are people who say that there is no cause, there is no effect. Everything is only an illusion. So there are people who talk like that. But even to them we argue that we do see the cause inhering in the effect. So you cannot totally deny that there is no cause and there is no effect. Okay. Then the other darshana, which is Nyaya, Nayayikas say that there was no effect before, there was only cause, but the effect came into being later. So they talk about something called pragabhava, so prior non-existence. So pragabhava was there, then somehow this effect came into being. They give their own theory for that. And then during the period of its life, the effect, whatever may be the life of it, it is there. Then when it is destroyed, then also there is one thing called pradvamsa abhava. So after the destruction also there is a non-existence. A prior non-existence, post destruction also you have non-existence. Then during its existence also they talk about anyonya bhava. because one thing is not there in the other thing. So mutually there is non-existence and all that they talk about. And even they say this mutual non-existence actually is in the form of existence of some other thing, correct? It's a positive entity. So like that they talk about this. So this contention also we negate, because for us something which is non-existent can never become existent, and something which is really existent will never become non-existence or cannot become non-existent. That is the teaching also of the tradition. Bhagavad Gita is very clear. Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha. So asataha bhavaha na vidyate means that which is non-existent does not have any existence, and that which is existent really does not have any non-existence or absence or abhava. So this seems like a very simple statement, but it's a very profound statement to be understood properly. And so this is where it's very important. So according to us, the effect always exists. Only thing is, it is potentially existing in the cause. All effects are potentially existing in the cause, and they only manifest under a particular condition. Okay, this particular condition is brought about by the different causes, you can say, the nimitta karana, upadana karana. There are other karanas also are there. Okay, so avantara and all we talk about. So different types of causes may be there, but when all of them come together, what was unmanifest becomes manifest. That's what is the teaching. So we cannot have anything non-existent. Everything is existent potentially, then it manifests, again it becomes unmanifest. So this is the Siddhanta here, and it's important to understand that. Now the next verse in fact takes forward all these things only. Okay, because normally when we talk about cause and effect, we have a doubt that whether there can be only a single cause, because in the world normally what we say is there is a clay lump, let us say, which is the material cause, and then there is a potter also is there, correct? And potter is the sentient cause, and potter also takes the help of some wheel and other, like a stick and all, it is required, correct? Upakarana also are there. So only when all these things come together and the skill of the potter also is involved in that, then only the pot comes into being. So then for this whole creation, this universe, this Jagat, can Brahman alone be the cause, or is anything else involved? That is the question. So that is being answered in the next verse, okay, in the Upanishad. Let us see that. Yatorna nabihi.
Tornanabihi
Srijate grinhate cha.
Srijate grinhate cha
Yatha prithivyaam.
Yatha
prithivyaam
Oshadhayaha.
Oshadhayaha
Sambhavanti.
Sambhavanti
Yatha sataha.
Sataha
Pushat.
Purushat
Keshalomani.
Shalomani
Tathaksharat.
Aksharat
Sambhavatiha.
Bhavatiha
Vishwam.
Vishwam.
So this is a very, very popular verse, and it is quoted a lot also in different places in Bhashyas and by different Acharyas. In fact, here the Upanishad is giving us 3 different examples, you can say, to help us understand the nature of Brahman as the cause of everything. It is important to establish Brahman as the cause of everything, because then only the original question will be answered. So we have to always link whatever is being taught here to the question. What was the question? The question was, I want to know that by knowing which all that is here is as well known. Okay, that is the question. So that's what Shaunaka asked us, and in keeping with that only this answer is being given here. So Brahman can be the cause of everything, that is being now established. Of course, understand that you should not stretch all these examples too much. Each example here is teaching us something, but you should not stretch it beyond that context. Sometimes what happens is, when we are learning things here, different analogies and examples are presented in the Upanishad and by the Guru also, because of course we can also give some modern examples sometimes. But the problem is, students actually then try to dwell too much into the example itself, and if you stretch it very much, then certain things will become different, because that is why it's an example, correct? It cannot be 100% the same thing. An example is quoted or talked about to actually only teach a particular point. Okay, so let us see here what are these 3 examples. Yatha Urnanabihi. Urnanabihi means spider. Okay, so the spider is called Urnanabihi, and what does it do? Srijate Grinnate cha. Srijate, it creates its own web, correct? Spider has the ability to create its web, and that particular yarn, correct? The yarn which comes out of itself, it comes out of the spider body itself, correct? So in the case of the yarn which the spider is using to spin its web, the spider is both the material cause and the intelligent cause also. Is that clear? So spider is a very good example, a worldly example, to show that the material cause and the intelligent cause, or whatever we say, upadana karanam and nimitta karanam, can be the same thing, one and the same thing. Abhinna nimitta upadanatvam. If you want to have an example, spider is a very good example. So here, so spider is given as an example to show that, like the spider spins its web, the yarn which it is using to spin its web comes from its own body, and it knows how to spin it also, correct? How to use it, and also if required it will also roll it back. You see that the normally spider can be there in the roof, sometimes it will be hanging, but if you go and try to poke at it, it will quickly roll the yarn itself and try to go up. It will roll it back into its own mouth, I think. So that's what grinnate cha. So it creates and it can take it back. So this also is an important thing here, because Brahman, when we talk about as a cause, all the things come from Brahman. They are all sustained by Brahman and they go back into Brahman, correct? This is what another Upanishad also talks about, that. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. So yato va imani bhutani jayante. So all these beings are born from which? Okay. And yena jatani jivanti, by which all the beings are sustained or live. They all live because of which vastu. And yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. And also they go back into which during resolution or dissolution, whatever you call it, pralaya. That vastu is Brahman. So like that, another Upanishad also talks about the same thing here. Srijate, grinnate cha. So it creates or it actually manifests the effect which is this world, and it can take it back also. In the process, it still remains as it is. It's not affected in any way. Understand this. Because when we talk about this abhinna nimitta upadanatvam, we are not talking pantheism. That also should be very clear. Brahman became the world. In the process, it did not disappear. It is still the same Brahman without losing its nature. That is what we also talked about. Vivarta upadanam. Swaswarupa aparityagena rupantara apattihi. So without giving up one's own nature, the Vivarta upadana karanam takes on some other form, okay, some form. Swaswarupa aparityagena rupantara apattihi. That is what we are talking about here. So Brahman is like that. Although that spider will not fit in to all this, but spider is a good example to understand that there can be abhinna nimitta upadanatvam, okay, and also this cause can create and also withdraw, okay, or manifest and withdraw. Like that much we can understand from the spider example. But the problem in the spider example is the spider's yarn or web itself is separate from the spider itself, correct? So that doubt comes then. Then is the world separate from Brahman or not? So that is why Shruti in its own karuna, mayam only you have to say. In fact, Shankara says that Shruti need not give 3 examples, but it is giving only to make the teaching very easy, in keeping with the mumukshus, the sadhakas, to make it easy for them, for the saulabhyam, for understanding only it is giving 3 separate examples. So here, as I said, with the spider example, there can be a question that the effect is still separate from the cause. Is that so in reality also? Then is the world, so we will accept the world is caused by Brahman. Brahman is the cause of this world. In fact, that everybody accepts, even within the different Vaidika traditions. Some of them in fact accept Brahman only as nimitta karanam, but most of the people in India accept Brahman as abhinna nimitta upadanam. But even those who accept Brahman as abhinna nimitta upadanam say that still Brahman is different from the world. Okay. So like this there are some contentions are there. So the next example, yeah.
No, the people who say Brahman is the nimitta karanam only, what is their viewpoint on what is the upadana karanam?
No, some of them say that that's why Prakriti is talked about, correct? Even in Bhagavad Gita, so they say Prakriti Purusha. For example, Sankhya people are there, they are Dvaitins. They say that Purusha is always separate from Prakriti, and Prakriti alone is the Upadana Karanam, Purusha is not. Like that there is a teaching is there. Even the Madhvas are the most vehement Dvaitins. So they also hold that Hari is the Nimitta Karanam only. Hari is not Upadana Karanam. And Upadana is Prakriti only for all of them. And that is also coexistent with the Purusha. Anadi. Prakriti also they have to make Anadi. But the problem in that is then if Prakriti and Purusha are Anadi and separate from each other, then the Purusha will become limited, correct? Cannot be Ananta. But I don't know how they actually handle these questions, because even I have not read through all their bhashyas fully. But this is their contention. Okay.
So did Prakriti exist before Purusha? If you ask the question.
No. They will say both are Anadi. So then you cannot ask which is before and after and all that, correct? So that question is invalid. If you say that two things are Anadi means they are Anadi, that's it.
But everything should go back to only one thing, right?
No, that again, that cannot be proved or it cannot be held as some kind of a postulate, correct? There is no need like that. Even modern scientists and all also they say, correct? Everything has been like this. Even Jainas say that there is no need of any cause at all. They don't accept. See, cause and effect you can accept within the creation. But for the creation you need not accept a cause, because first you have to establish that this is a creation, correct? Unless you can establish that the Jagat is a creation, there is no need for postulating a creator. So Jainism is talking about like that. They say that the world is as it is always. So you don't require any creator. Correct? So you can argue in different ways, and only with logic you cannot establish anything. Understand that. Even here Shruti is giving only examples to make you understand what it is trying to teach. It's not trying to establish the fact that Brahman is Jagat Karanam by giving examples or whatever, by giving some inference. It's not based on logic. For a Shruti is a Pramana by itself, and whatever it reveals is valid. So keeping that in mind, also we have to look at all these examples only as a way of understanding what is being taught. So here the next example, if you see, what does it say? Yatha Prithivyam Oshathayaha Sambhavanti. So like the plants come out of Mother Earth, okay? So here plants are also part of the earth only, correct? They are not separate from earth, but plants come out of the earth, okay? That is another example. So that means the cause and effect are not really different from one and the other. That's what is being talked about in the second one. So whatever doubt you had from the first example is answered by the second one, where like the plants and trees and other things which come out of the earth are caused by earth, and they are also earth only. Yeah, tell me.
So it's like a seed and plant example. Like seed is, like seed has that plant inside. It's just it needs some certain condition to come out, and plant has that seed.
Correct.
Is it the
That's
correct?
what that is what we say to understand that potentially everything exists. Correct. That's what we have been saying, that the cause also is there, effect also is potentially there in the cause. That is the seed and plant, but here it is not like that. Here it just says, we have to say earth is the cause for everything, correct? Everything grows out of the earth only. But still they are all earth, part of this earth only. They are not separate from Prithvi. So here what we are trying to establish is that the cause and effect are not separate. Because in the spider example, the cause is different from the effect. But here what we try to understand is cause is not really separate from the effect. That's what is being talked about. The seed plant example is a different example. Okay, it is trying to teach you something else. So even I talked about Dakshinamurti Stotram, correct? There is a Bijasyantari Vankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha. Like that, there is one Dakshinamurti Stotram is there where this seed is talked about. So the bija the Ankura is there within the Bija. Ankura is whatever the sprout, correct? And like that, this whole creation, this Jagat, Idam Jagat, was there in the Nirvikalpa Brahman. And then again it comes out. Punaha Jayate. So that is talked about. So that particular example is to understand that the effect resides in the cause potentially. So in our Siddhanta, there is no non-existence. Understand that. Cause also is existent, effect also is existent always. But it can be unmanifest. It is not available for knowledge, that's all. But when it is manifest, it is available for you to know. So Shankara argues that a lot. So he says it is like everything is there even in a dark room, but we are not able to know that. But when you switch on the light, you are able to see things, correct? Like that only, the effects are all there in the cause potentially, unmanifest. But when one effect manifests, it is as though that effect is now covering all other effects. Is that clear? So that is the argument. So to understand that point, the Bija and Ankura example is relevant. Here this Prithvivyam Oshadhayaha, from the earth the different plants and trees come, but they are also part of the earth only. Okay? They belong to the earth. They are also looked upon as earth. So the effect and cause are not different from one another. They are the same. But even here there is one more question can come. Okay? What is that question? See this Prithvivyam Oshadaya, both are Jada, you can say, correct? Prithvi also is Jadam. All these plants which are coming out also, you can't say they are totally sentient. So then, but how come Brahman, which is one, can produce or be the cause of this whole creation, this universe, where both sentient and insentient things are there? So can insentient beings come out of a sentient being? That question is there. Because some people will say that the effect should always have the qualities of the cause. The qualities of the cause have to inhere in the effect. And the effect cannot be totally different from the cause. But here, Chetanam and Achetanam are totally opposite things. So from a Chetana cause, Achetana effect cannot come. Okay, this is another point. An objection can be raised. So how do we answer that? That's why the next example comes into the picture. Yata Sataha Purushat Keshalomani. So from the human beings we are there, correct? The two Sataha here means the alive, because dead bodies don't grow hair and nails. Keshalomani means hair and nails. Okay. So here the live beings, human beings who are sentient, but from them what effect, what grows out, both the nails and hair are non-sentient. So there is no rule that a sentient cause cannot produce an insentient effect. Is that clear? So the third example is actually addressed at that question. So from this, anyway, effectively what is getting established is Brahman is the total cause, correct? It is the one and only cause of everything that is here. So if you are able to understand Brahman as the cause of everything that is here, then our original question also gets answered, because then whatever is here becomes mithya. Understand that. Because the cause alone is satyam. The effects are all mithya. Because cause alone is available in all periods. And the existence of the cause alone is the existence of the effect. The effect cannot exist without being the cause. But the cause can exist without being that particular effect. And in our understanding of the cause, there is no effect. For example, a clay pot must be of clay only, correct? Without the substance clay, you cannot even understand a clay pot. In your understanding of clay pot, clay has to be there, because clay is the one which gives existence to the clay pot. But in your understanding of clay by itself, there is no need of understanding potness or what is pot. In your understanding of clay, there is only clay as a substance. There need not be any pot in it. So from this we understand that the cause is the one which is there always. The effect can manifest and then it becomes unmanifest, again it can be manifest, so it comes and goes. And whatever comes and goes and depends on some other thing for its very own existence is not real. That's why it is mithya. So mithya and satyam are two terms which we will be using a lot. Okay, when you are learning Vedanta, you have to understand these two terms clearly. What is mithya? Mithya means it is something which depends on some other thing for its very existence. That which is not self-existent is mithya. Okay, so all names and forms are mithya for us. Okay, in fact, finally, if we analyze, Brahman alone is satyam. Everything else is mithya, because everything else can be reduced to something else. That our modern science does it very well, correct? So modern science reduces everything to atomic level, then subatomic level and all that. Afterwards, they also talk about consciousness and all that, but they talk in a different way. It's not in the way we understand that, but still they have to talk about that. They have to bring in the observer. But for them, the observer also is only some quantum system and all that they talk about like that. But even there is a problem. There is a paradox is there, and they are still trying to address that. So even the most hardcore atheistic and materialistic scientists also will only say that they will not accept what we say, but they will say that, but we are also not claiming anything, we are yet to understand everything fully, but we won't accept what you say. That is the kind of argument they give, because for them, given given their means of knowledge which they have, they cannot postulate anything more than what they are currently saying. So they are constrained by only pratyaksha and anumana. Beyond that, they don't have any means of knowledge. They don't accept Shruti as a means of knowledge. So they cannot talk about anything more. But we have Shruti as a pramana. Shruti is the means of knowledge. So we have to take whatever Shruti says. Of course, whatever Shruti says is beyond what science is talking about. Understand that. And it is not against what science is talking about all. So Shruti is neither scientific nor unscientific. It is a means of knowledge in its own right. It does not contradict what science has established or can establish. Science itself is a growing discipline. It is establishing many things. Shruti has nothing to do, its domain is not what science is trying to teach us. So there should not be any confusion in that. So the domain of Shruti itself is different. What it is trying to reveal is totally different. And so there is no conflict really between Shruti and science. And some of the scientific discoveries can even be used to understand what Shruti is trying to reveal to us. But don't say Veda is scientific and all that. That is, such people don't understand science also, they don't understand Veda also. That is the problem. And they have some kind of a complex, I think. They want to establish everything as scientific, which it is not. Everything need not be scientific also. Because science has its own methodology. And only if you follow that methodology, something can be called as scientific. So you should have a hypothesis which is falsifiable and all that in science. That's not the case. Shruti is simply revealing, and what it is revealing cannot be falsified. Yeah.
Same. But there are certain things, but which that science relates to Veda. So what do you say about that?
No, that's what I'm saying. Those things also we have to say only whatever is science is validating now, you can say, with its own methods, may have been talked about in the Shruti also. Then the Shruti is no more the pramana for that. Understand that. Shruti is only restating, in some cases Shruti is restating certain things. Okay.
But can we say that science validates those, or that is also not rational? But because sometimes it is rational, like when you, and I'm not trying to say that everything can be rationalized through science, but it is possible that you can rationalize through science. That is what is my thinking.
No, see, let us take Swarga. Can science prove or disprove Swarga is there or not? Tell me.
Yes, no, that is correct.
No, that's what I am saying. Shruti's domain is different. Even you take Vedanta, Shruti is giving you an equation that you are the cause of this entire creation. You are Brahman, you are the limitless. Now science has no role to play in this. This can be only understood by treating Shruti as a pramana. There is no other way of understanding this, no other tradition is even talking about this. And science has no role to play in this. Like this, when we talk about Shruti as a pramana, what it has to reveal should be anadhigatam, should not be available through any other means. That is an important thing. Not only that, whatever it is revealing has to be meaningful also. We say anadhigatam, abaditam, phalavat artha bodhagatvam. These three things have to be there. Yeah.
It's an extension to what Anandi is saying. We can say that science is validating whatever is in the Purva Bhaga of the Veda, not the Vedanta part.
Even that is problematic, because let us say karma. Can science prove that papa is there, punya is there? Because whole of Purva Bhaga karma is based on papa punya. You are doing a yaga, a homa, to gain punya to go to Swarga. Let us say you are doing Vajapeya yaga. There are Vajapayis are there, correct, in North India. Why that name is there? Those who did the Vajapeya yaga are called Vajapeyi. Somayaji means those who did the Somayaga are called Somayajis. So Dvivedi means those who have studied two Vedas. Like these names are all there. What I am saying is, doing this particular karma, you are going to get something. Is what the Purva Bhaga is saying. How can anybody come
what
and...
I mean to say is, like, whatever we do Purva Bhaga, I mean, if we take everything as an energy, so those yajnas are done to create the positive energy around you. And that will have
but even that...
See, but Jay, it is not about karma, papa, punya, and that we relate to science. As she said, it is the concept like of that energy and things like that which can be rationalized through science.
Even that, I think you go and tell this to a scientist, they will laugh at you. Okay, so you can't call this science, saying that.
What I'm trying to
let us be clear about. Let me tell you, there are some statements in Shruti which are validated by science. I am not denying that.
Exactly.
But those statements are not central teaching of the Shruti itself. They are all some side statements. For example, in the Aruna Prashna, light and Aruna is the Devata, okay, light is being talked about. Then it says one light becomes 7 different things, and even on one side one more is there, on the other another thing is there, and all it talks about 9 different things. Now modern scientists can say yes, we are talking about spectrum, infrared, ultraviolet and all that. Is that clear? But that's not a central teaching of Shruti at all. It is some side statement, it is there. Statements like this are there. But
interpretation, Jay, that's all. Like we are, as a common person, it is
those
just a matter of
they are not even treated as the main teaching. It is there in a particular part of the Veda where you are talking about Aruna as a Devata and you are propitiating the Devata to get something, let us say. That is the main thing there.
Jayji, we are not contradicting. I mean, we absolutely agree with what you're saying. But science is not something which is out of the world. It is also what Bhagwan created, right? So science is also part of Bhagwan's energy. It's not something out of the world thing. So when we worship God, Sun as our God, what actually we doing is like trying to get that positive energy from Sun. That is all I'm saying. I mean, because science is not something.
See, you can say this, but whatever you are saying, this energy thing and all is also unscientific only, correct? No scientist is going to accept what you are saying as science. You are claiming that sun's energy you are getting by praying. Do you think this statement is scientific? Or any scientist will really accept this?
No.
You are using scientific terminology to understand something, but that's not science.
Yeah, let me put it in this way. I'm not saying that worshipping sun is a scientific. No, when we stand, it's just
no.
Process.
You say anything. You give a statement to me. Let me see whether it is scientific or not.
Also.
No, Jay, what I think, Meenakshi, right?
No, Shalini.
Shalini.
What I think this is what both of us are trying to say. See, it doesn't mean that you are going to tell about, if you tell a scientist who's a hardcore scientist and who's an atheist and who's not believer of God, if you go and tell him that pray to sun, you will get all the positive energies. No, he will not agree, but he will definitely he will definitely be with you for the fact that there is positive energy. There is energy in that. He may not even accept that there is positive energy. For some time after he practices that, maybe it is up to the individual whether to agree that he is able to get that positive energy or not. If he is a complete atheist, he will never believe it. But as I said, praying is independent of whatever energy we are.
No, I understand whatever you are trying to explain to me. I exactly understand that. But what I am trying to tell you also, you please listen. I am telling that no need to use first scientific terminology to understand all these things. And you don't have to say that it is scientific also, because really unless all scientists can accept something as scientific, we cannot ourselves just claim that something is scientific. That's all I am saying. And we don't have to use anything, because that is the whatever it is revealing is valid in itself. You don't have to validate it from anywhere else. That is the Vaidika position, and that has to be very clear. There is some confusion with regards to that. Understand that. So we don't even have to use all this wrong terminology to understand something. Is that clear? So there is I personally feel that if you want to bring in science into all these things, actually you will become confused. So it's better that we don't bring and try to make Veda scientific.
Trying to involve science in that. We are not talking about that it is only science and Vedas are all scientific. No, we are not trying to say. What I am trying to say is science is not something out of the world. It is also Bhagwan's thing, because it's a knowledge.
Yes,
I mean,
I understand.
Kind of
that's what I am saying.
Bhagwan's knowledge.
The domain of
but
science.
I think Shalini, he doesn't want to relate science with this.
which I will accept for now, so that I will go with the, I can go with the blind faith. See, sir, there are some things which we go with the blind faith and then don't relate it. Even in science, there are some things. This is the rule. That's it. We say this is the equation.
Tell me, I don't know. Radha is also there. She may be a better scientist.
Radha, okay, that is true.
Should not talk too much.
On this.
What I am saying is there are axioms in science which cannot be explained. I agree, but they have built a whole lot of theory and experimentation on top of the axiom to hold that this axiom is true. Understand that. So you can have a theory based on an axiom which is falsifiable, and then you have your own experimentation and all that to prove your theory correct.
Yes.
So like that, we can take the Vedantic truth as an axiom and try to build a scientific theory on top of also that. I am not against that.
Exactly. That is what
Veda understand. Whatever Veda is revealing, it is revealing. That's it. There is no, science has got no role to play in that. Nothing.
Exactly. That is we are trying to say. Veda is
trying to say.
And science is that, of course, that atheist or a scientist will not agree with that. Oh, it's sun is a god, but he will agree that yes, you will get vitamin D if you stand in.
Atheists may even agree that when you pray.
I mean, you pull your ear from the front or from the back. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, you are pulling your ear or nose. I mean, which way you? I mean, you stand in sun and praying and do Aditya Hridaya Stotram and get vitamin D, or just stand there and in 20 minutes and get vitamin D. Ultimately, you are getting vitamin D, which is very much important for your body.
No. So see, the problem in your proposition, let me say, you are reducing everything at the end of the day to vitamin D. See, that is the problem. So what I am saying is, the prayer is not meant for vitamin D. Understand that vitamin D is a avantara phalam at best. Okay, it is a side effect. Prayer is for producing punya. That's what Veda is telling. Understand that. And that punya is going to give you a pleasant experience later on or now. Now, where does science come in this? There is nothing scientific about this. But doing that, you can have experientially, you can say yes, whatever Veda is saying is working for me, so I accept Veda as a pramana. But still Veda is not science, or it is not scientific. It is completely unscientific. Understand that?
We are not telling Veda is science or science can relate it. Wherever science can bring in a relationship, or else it can bring a relation.
Put it like this. Okay, let me. No. I understand what you are saying. Let me then summarize the whole thing properly. There is, even in the tradition, we do talk about all this. In fact, Shankara himself in certain places says that this yoga is talked about as a sadhana, correct?
Yes.
And when you do yoga sadhana, people do get some siddhis, some powers and all that. This is also accepted. In fact, I have to tell you one interesting thing. We were talking about cause and effect last week in more detail. So in that, one of the arguments which Shankara is putting forward to say that the effect is also always there is that he says, we accept that yogis and munis, all these exalted people, even Ishvara, has knowledge of all three periods of time, Trikala Jnani. So if their knowledge has to be true, then the effect has to be always there. The future effect has to be there now in their knowledge at least, correct? Then only it is valid. Otherwise their knowledge will become invalid if the future effect is not there right now in their knowledge. So like that he is giving one more argument to actually say that the effect is always there, but only it is unmanifest and all that. Why I am telling you this is, this yoga siddhi also, they are all important because it brings faith in the validity of Veda. Yeah. Up to that much I will accept. So if some of the statements of Vedas are validated by science and it makes more people to come and study Veda, I am happy about that.
Exactly. That is
But
the
that
gist.
doesn't
That's
make Vedas
exactly
scientific.
what we are trying to
Okay.
say.
Yeah. That
No,
is
no,
what
that's why I am summarizing, but still understand that doesn't still make Veda scientific, and don't use some mumbo jumbo to claim that Veda is scientific and all that.
No, we're
Okay,
not
people
saying
will laugh
that
at you.
Veda is scientific. No,
There
we're not.
and there's
Actually,
some
what I am trying to say is science is not validating what Veda is saying.
Exactly.
What I say is Veda is validating
Can we get
what
back?
science is saying.
Okay, let us get back to
I'm
the
like,
matter.
and because for me, science is not something out of the world thing. It is also Bhagwan's thing, and
No, all that we
here
agree.
it is Bhagwan.
Scientific laws are also manifestation of Bhagwan. All laws are manifestation of Bhagwan. We talk about that. That is the whole order, correct? We have to understand that. Even psychological order is there, biological order, physical order, chemical order. Everything is an order, and laws are there as part of the order. Things are moving around because of that. So Brahman as a Abhinna Nimitta Upadanatvam, when we establish for Brahman, this understanding of this whole thing as a manifestation of Brahman is very important. So we accept all that. But anyway, so I hope I have made my point clear and I understand exactly what you are also saying. So don't think that I am dismissing everything what you are saying. Okay, but I may be a little bit strong in some statements because I think there are some wrong notions going around in all these things.
Yes, we
So
definitely
that is the
agree with
reason I
that,
am
yes.
putting it that way. Okay, so
And there are some
so let
wrong
us,
notions going out there, and that is very true.
because I think that some people even have an inferiority complex that they want to say everything is science and all that, and that's not really required. Okay, so let us put it that way. Okay, so here, anyway, so the final example was about that there is no niyama that a chetana vastu cannot be the cause for an achetana effect. Okay, so that is the Purushat Kesha Lomani. So like these three different examples are there. In fact, more relevant example in Brihadaranyaka also it is talked about everything is Jyotihi and all that. Okay. So for example, the Swapna world is a very good example again to understand this. In Swapna, you are the cause of everything, right? In fact, your knowledge alone is the cause of the Swapna Jagat. And space and time are also created in Swapna Jagat. And in that also you are having both sentient and insentient beings are there. There is a mountain in your Swapna and there is also a tiger which is chasing you. That is also there. And you are the cause of the mountain also, you are the cause of the tiger also. And when you wake up only you really know that anyway. So like that the Swapna is a very good example to understand that knowledge alone is important and that alone becomes the material, whatever, it becomes the cause for everything to manifest. So that's how it says Tatha Aksharat Sambhavati Iha Vishwam. Iha Vishwam means this universe, this world. Okay. Similarly comes out of this Akshara, Aksharam Brahma. So Yaya Tad Aksharam Adhigamyate, that is the Paravidya we are talking about. So that Aksharam Brahma, from that Aksharam Brahma, this whole world comes about. So that Aksharam Brahma is the cause of everything, that is Satyam. This Vishwam, which is the effect, is Mithya. So if you know that Satya Vastu, all that is here is as well known. Because all that is here really does not exist. If you look at what is here as Brahman, Brahman alone is there. In your understanding of what is here, only Brahman is there means Brahman alone is there. All other things don't count. Okay. So Satyam plus Mithya is still Satyam. Satyam minus Mithya is still Satyam. Understand that. That is our arithmetic. And it is not scientific. Okay. So this arithmetic you have to understand. That's what is talked about in the Shanti Mantra also. I explained that day. Purna Madaha Purna Midam Purnat Purna Mudasyate Purnasya Purna Madaya Purnameva Avashishyate. So this is a very, very important again mantra. which reveals the reality so beautifully. So that is our Vedic mathematics really. In fact, the Vedic mathematics is what? Satyam plus Mithya is Satyam. Satyam minus Mithya also is Satyam. So Satyam is always there, and that is this Brahman. And knowing that Brahman, you as well know everything else, because everything else is known as Brahman. Like you know that snake is really only rope, correct? There is no snake. If you understand it as rope, then there is no more snake. Even though the snake kind of appearance may still be there, it's only an appearance. It's not real anymore. Similarly, the world is only an appearance in Brahman. And if you are able to see the world as world, then you are afraid, you are samsari. But if you are able to see the Brahman in world, then you are only seeing Brahman, that Aksharam. Other things don't matter anymore. They don't count, because they are not in the same order of reality. Satyam is in a different order of reality. Mithya is different order of reality, and we have to understand it as it is. So that is this verse. We will close it here today. We will continue with the next verse in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnamevavashishyate
Purnamevavasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi Om.
Harihi Om.
Jayji, sorry, you don't